Hello and welcome back, and today I want to talk about another Terramaster device. Terramaster is a brand that I do have a tendency to talk about on this channel at least once or twice a month. They're one of the first brands that I ever covered here on the channel, on the blog and more, so they're always going to have a special place in my heart. So sometimes when I look at their solutions, I'm going to be a little bit too enthusiastic, and I'm going to try and hold it back for this one, simply because this is one of the dullest things I've ever seen. Let's get it out of the way straight away. This is not an interesting device. The end user that's going to be buying something like this is not buying it because they think, whoo, that is cool. I'm surrounded by cool things in this studio, from NASes to cameras to switches to this thing with the Plex logo behind me. There are lots of interesting things that I talk about on the channel, and this isn't one of them. However, this is a device that breeds necessity. It is a device that they have released because people asked for it. And where there is supply, there will be demand. And that demand at the beginning comes from the simple idea that a number of times we need to clone a hard drive. We need to clone an SSD. Maybe we've got a system, a NAS, a DAS, a standard desktop PC, and we need to clone. And we need to do it as quickly as possible. Now, because of the interfaces of SATA and because of devices getting smaller and smaller and devices becoming ever more complex with their own multiple parameters generally being installed onside a hard drive or SSD internally, or the fact that we need to have a clone of a drive to be given to a third party, be it for security and insurance purposes or just internally, cloning devices are out there, and generally I've always relied on two different brands for cloning and duplication. One at the budget end has always been StarTech. They've always provided a lot of solutions with regards to docking stations and bigger that allow you to clone USBs, hard drives, SSDs and more. At the other end, I would go to companies say as Crew Dataport. Now, they've changed names, or just CRU. They produce forensic level duplication, and they are wildly expensive, but that's because their duplication in mind has to be a near digital clinical level. This, on the other hand, is somewhere between the two. This is the D2 clone from Terramaster. It's a 2-bay hard drive and SSD cloning device. It's very, very similar to that of a DAS, a direct attached storage, but it doesn't utilize RAID. It doesn't take advantage of those protocols. This is designed for cloning hard drives without the need of a graphical user interface. Now, before we go any further, let's see what we get for our money. And for our money, I'm talking between 80 to 100 quid. And again, prices will differ around the world and your tax. And also bear in mind that Terramaster is one of those brands that you see generally on sale on the likes of Amazon and stuff like that, because they buy in a lot of bulk. So that price, I'm saying 80, 90 nicker, but bear in mind that price will go up and down depending on where you are in the world. And of course, you can order direct from them. The box is not the blue box design that I'm used to from this brand. And again, I'm sure there's one up here. There we go. We've got the Terramaster box. In general, they've always gone for that kind of blue box design. This is a little bit, let's call it what it is. It's quite beige. And it's pretty sturdy, so it's going to be interesting to see what's inside. Let's open this bad boy up. Have a look inside. Razor-edged cardboard there, nearly took a thumb off. We've got our box of accessories. We have an external power brick there. This is a 40-watt external PSU. We've got a mains power cable. It's a figure 8 2-pin there that goes in the rear. We have got a USB-C to A cable, and it's worth highlighting. And again, little things it's worth looking out for when you buy any DAS device, certainly. About the cables, when it's NAS, I always talk about Cat 6 and Cat 7. In this case, just to make sure you can see, it is indeed a USB 3 external cable, because just because it's C doesn't mean it's definitely USB 3. And a lot of the times we're seeing brands bringing out standard USB cables, and they are just bog standard low power USB 2s. Always stay on top of that. But yeah, that's an A to C cable. A for your connected device, and the C for this device here. I'll get rid of that bag. We've got screws for 2.5 inch and 3.5 inch media for those media bays. Inside we have the screwdriver. You've heard me talk about it before. Always been a fan of the Terramaster, including the screwdriver. I still use several of theirs from over the videos, but again, I'll hold back on the gushing. We've got these weird labels that they always seem to include with their NAS and DAS solutions, but I would argue this is the one time I would actually use these hard drive labels. It's the only time I think about using them. because in terms of duplication, a lot of the time that's what you're going to use. You know, multiple drives on the go, and labeling might actually be useful. Information on the 2-year warranty this device arrives with. Again, 2 years is alright. I mean, I kind of would have hoped for 3 for something like this, but at the same time, at that price point, 2 years is still pretty generous. On top of that, we have got the quick start installation guide, and it directs you to an online service where there's lots of guides available. Not a huge fan of that. I quite like a real manual myself personally, but you know, each to their own. And that's it for our accessories, and that just leaves the device itself. There we are. There's our Terramaster box. Nothing more in there. Let's see what we get for our money. Remove each end. We've got the hard phone there, very rigid, and we can have a look at the packaging it's in. Have a look inside there, and again, I know a number of you aren't overly keen on the design of Terramaster chassis. They do, you know, they do seem a little dated. I don't mind them. I think some of the little modern twists they've done to this chassis in the last few years aren't too shabby. I quite like that. Again, looks incredibly similar to that of their 2-bay dash chassis, unsurprisingly. It's completely metal on the outside with ventilation all on the base of the device. And again, we've got LEDs there on the side that are the progress tracker of when you are committing a duplication. So up there, we've got it all detailed. If I bring that nice and close to the camera there, you can see that those LEDs will pass through the check system as you duplicate the drives together. We've also got the initiator button there, and apparently it's a 2-step initiation as well, so it will double check even if you don't, because there is no graphical user interface on this, you will be able to double initiate it, and it's all detailed in the instructions. Again, would have liked to have had a paper version of that to go through, so I think a number of us will be slightly nervous there. Again, metal, as mentioned, lovely and cooling, and again, with hard drive media inside, heat dissipation is always useful, although this isn't exactly a device that's going to be burning through it. And if we look at the rear, we have got that rear mounted fan that will increase and decrease its RPM as the system is in utilization, but it's worth, again, touching on that it's going to be so-so. It's not going to be blisteringly hot inside there, even if you use more enterprise level hard drives like your 16, 18, 20 TB drives coming up soon. This will support it over SATA, but it's not going to get that hot. And of course we have that USB-C port there, and that's really it. If we have a look inside the trays, they're plastic in design, and again, screw holes for 2.5-inch media as well as 3.5-inch on the side there. It's a standard plastic tray. It's quite rugged, got to say, quite a rugged tray. If we remove the other one, you have to see that inside we don't have any power connectors. We've just got the 2 straight SATAs. Let's try and get the light to do its job there. You can see those little SATA back planes there at the back. So again, no loose cabling inside. It's quite a simplistic assembly, it has to be said. This is a cloning device in, you know, pretty much what you would expect from it. Now, above and beyond that, let's talk about the good and the bad. Obviously, the good, I'm someone that utilizes a lot of hard drive media, and particularly different RAIDs on different NAS systems constantly. So the idea of being able to duplicate drive by drive in a RAID, that's something I'm going to want to bench test this in the software overview. I'm going to take a RAID from one NAS and then going to clone it onto some other drives, drive by drive, and then load those drives back into the NAS, but the new drives, to see if the cloning was successful. It is not a forensic level cloning machine as you would expect at that price point. Also, another little downer for me there, it is USB 3.2 Gen 1, that for those that aren't aware is also known as 3.1 Gen 1 or USB 3. Let's face it, that's what it's called, and that's 5 gigabits per second. So if you do connect a drive inside this, you can't get much faster speed than that. But it's worth highlighting, it doesn't have RAID either. This only has single drive connectivity. So if you do connect it via that USB port, you can only see loose drives like a JBOD. You can't do anything with them. It doesn't have any kind of RAID 0/1 spanning or anything like that built in. So even if you did have a higher than traditional USB 3 connectivity, you're not going to be able to do much with it anyway. So I think standard USB is fine on this device. Overall, I would say it is a sturdy device. It is very, very dull. We've already touched on that. This is a device of necessity, not leisure or pleasure. I like it. I think as a cloning device, we're going to hold off full judgment until we've set it up and tried to duplicate some drives from a NAS RAID in this system onto some fresh disks to see what happens. And we will, of course, be testing if we try to duplicate different size drives and how that affects a lot of the partitions. If we, for example, try to clone a 4 TB onto an 8 TB drive, that's something we definitely want to see if this can do, because I know a number of you will be very interested to see if that's possible. Is it possible to do it automated without having to muck around with the drives? And more importantly, to know that the source drive is not going to be affected. We only want activity on the target drive, not the source. Source, we want pure read and read alone. But this has been our hardware unboxing and brief overview, let's be honest, of the D2 clone from Terramaster. The software review is going to be tougher because obviously it doesn't have software, and as a brand, Terramaster, known for their budget solutions, I just want to see how this is going to operate in practice before we totally give our verdict. But click like if you've enjoyed the video, click subscribe if you want to learn more, and I will see you next time.